when our engineer says we're on. Actually, I had a question, Chris, if you have a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
and where's my
hang on,
stream?
let me see it over
Okay.
here.
I
I don't know
had
if you're actually there yet.
we're not sure if we're on
I'll
yet
tell you when you're.
or not, and I got to look for the places to. I got to check
I'll
out.
tell you when you can see you.
Okay. Live stream check. I saw a couple of your videos, and the one that you did taped was really funny. The one that you yelled, some guy yelled out something in the middle of it, and you're like, "I told you not to wreck my tape." That was so funny. Of course, that you're doing that. You seem so comfortable on like stage. Are you or?
It is. It's funny. If you put me in a room full of people, I get to a corner.
Uh-huh.
You put me on stage, and I feel like I have something to say that's worth listening to.
Oh, that's awesome.
It just takes over.
That's really cool. I wish I was like that. I'm like, I'm pretty much one-on-one. I'm decent, but anything else, I'm a wreck.
Yeah,
So.
I'm such an introvert when I'm in a group of people, but when it's just me on a stage, it's like I have control over everything. I don't have to pretend like I want to listen to somebody.
Cynthia. You guys are live.
Cool. Oh, well, cool. Well,
what number are we on? 41?
We are 44. I put. We are live, I guess. That's what we're being told, that we're finally live,
Right.
which is awesome. I got to get the stream going here, if I can, which maybe the engineer will come help find that, and we'll get started. I'm really excited about this. Give me 1 second.
It's usually over.
There we go. Do you see it? If you're watching, please say hi. I'm very excited to introduce Chris, and I still don't have it, but
Has anybody chatted, maybe?
no, maybe somebody should say hi so I can see if it. Hi, Moppy! Yay! It works. Awesome. All right. Sweet. Let me just scooch this over. Sorry for the delay. Oh my goodness. Okay, I think I got it. I think I got it. And almost got it. There we are. Got it. Kind of. Okay. I'm getting there. Boy, I really have this, this down, don't I? Jeez. All right. Welcome to Real Talk with Angry Soccer Mom. This week's discussion topics are anything you think is newsworthy about racism, bigotry, and inequality in America. And since we all know that's pretty much everything, you can talk about anything you want. The show is meant to be an opportunity for viewers to speak their mind and have a forum, but to also serve as an educational tool for white folks who want to learn about systemic racism but don't really know who to talk to about it. Today I am so happy. I have my guest host is Chris Smith, who is a comedian, father, all around really, really super nice guy. Welcome to Real Talk with me.
Thank you for having me back.
Thrilled
it's
to
good
have
to be
you.
here.
Thank you. And Chris, I had a question for you. Can you tell people like what you do? Chris is a comedian. He's very funny. And I think he's one of those comedians like, I'm like, you should be famous, dude. You're good. You know, like, why aren't you like on TV? So I think he's super great. And so the coolest thing Chris does, which you told me before, is you kind of integrate the anti-racism theme and the anti-hatred stuff into your comedy.
Yeah, well, I mean, if anyone's watching that sees what I look like, I have been often confused for being the guy that wants to partake in the conversation, you know, dropping of the N-word and you know, just assuming by looking at me that I fit that. So when I'm on stage, I like to point out when people go out of their way to be bigots and how I go out of my way to let them know that it's not cool to be that way.
Yeah, well, you definitely, you know what, I get I get kind of the same thing sometimes, but not, you know, not because of, well, because of how I look, actually. A lot of people actually assume that I'm like, way into like being a white supremacist or something. Like when I went to that Trump rally to interview people, they're like, "Oh, you must be a Trump fan. Come on over." I was like, little did they know.
No, well, if you're at a Trump rally, you're not sharing your.
Right.
Let's be. I mean, unless you want to get punched. I mean, let's
Yeah.
just like it's it's the opposite. If I'm
Yeah.
hanging out with a bunch of people that think like me, and you come shooting your rhetoric, hey, you get punched in
Yeah.
the face. I'm not exactly going to be upset about it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting because when people see like just a picture of me, they're like, I look like the snobby old like housewife, and with a name like Angry Soccer Mom, I seem like it's funny. But you definitely, I could see people going, oh. But so do you get that a lot or not really? Just
Not. I mean, not often. So, but I get it. I should say I've gotten it enough. It's funny. For as effed as these times may be, I actually am getting it less. I think because I'm putting it out there more.
Just not see you. You're square. You're not on
Oh, okay.
camera for some reason.
Oh, for some reason I'm not on camera, and
Hang on a
people are
second.
telling me.
Yeah.
We got the engineer in. Thank you, people.
Sorry,
I'm so
guys.
sorry. Sorry about that. How's that?
And I just realized how to do read the actual chat. So I apologize.
Oh, no.
Like, hey, we couldn't see anything.
Okay.
Connected. Live stream resumed. Stream is continuing. You gotta change this to what you want it to be. Number 44
okay.
with
Do I have to do it right now?
space.
Okay. Do I have to do it right
Well,
now?
it doesn't matter. It's starting up.
Sorry for the delay, everybody. Okay.
This is the first time we've had this problem.
We've never had a problem like this ever, have we?
See, it's just me. I'll take up
Chris,
the ownership for it now.
2 for 2. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry about that. He's worth the wait, you guys. He's worth the wait.
I think I know
Really?
the problem is.
I have a real live engineer on the case. Well, Chris, I can see you and you can see me, so that's all that really matters, right? No, just kidding.
Yeah, everyone can just listen to us.
Yeah, blab.
There we go. All right, now you're live.
Okay. Hopefully.
There you go.
Hopefully. Is that better, everybody? Anybody?
I see things.
Okay, I saw everyone before, so.
There we go.
Hi, Joey. Hi, Michael. You're not supposed to be watching. Hi, Neil and Martin. Hello. Am I okay? Can you give me a yes if we're good now? After all that, I apologize. I'm looking for a yes from somebody. And Moppy is here. I hope she's still here. Not getting any oh, yes, yay. Okay, so I guess I'm going to assume we're okay unless we're told otherwise. So anyway, as we were saying, I apologize for the wait. Chris was on before a long, long, long time ago. And, oh, good. Sure, you have video. Thank you. And he is wonderful. He's a comedian. He's very funny. And a lot of his comedy is very real. And I mean, very real. So, oh, good. You can hear and see both of us. Super. Glad to know. And so I am thrilled to have him. Let me just turn this off because I always get a phone call during these, or a number of phone calls. So I wanted to start by, for anyone who is not familiar with me, the very, very angry soccer mom, I was actually told by somebody today that, I was just telling Chris, I was told by somebody today that I should really contain my anger and my hatred and how much I despise white people and how much I think they're just horrible and awful because it's really not effective. And so I'm like kind of going, okay, by one person that told me that I understand you hate all people, and I was just like, whoa, it's kind of a bit much. Have you ever had anyone say stuff like that to you, Chris? Or
I've had people tell me that I'm too angry. But my response to that is if it comes off like anger, then I'm doing it right because it means I'm being very passionate about it. And the fact that anyone can say that you're anti-white when what you're talking about is equality and equity for all. It's just ironic to me. Like, I hate white people that are bigots and prejudiced and homophobic and all the things that we know exist in this world.
Right.
I don't have time for that shit. But to say that somebody, because they fight for or speak up for or care about the issues of other people who don't look or sound like them, that's an issue.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the woman said to me, thanks, Martin. The woman said to me, you really should put your time and energy into the people you care about. And I said to her, oh, it's hard to hear the guest, Andrew.
Oh, we're
He'll
is
yell.
yeah, let's see if that's better. I can
Andrew,
talk
tell us if that's
directly.
better. Anastasia, hello. Yay. Well, so I said, that's exactly what I'm doing when I try to use my white privilege to educate other white people. I love my fellow humans, and it's not fair that we have systemic racism. So I was trying to explain that, but I don't really get it. But anyway, so
It's just it brings to the point, if you saw someone walking down the street and you saw another person put their hand in their back pocket and take their wallet, you would intervene, or you we would hope that you would intervene.
right.
And it's the fact that people would intervene if it were a person of a certain color that they liked,
Hmm.
or a gender, or a sexuality. That's the
Right.
problem. It's when people go, I won't get involved because of the color of someone's skin. Like, that
Hmm.
right there is the issue. And that
Yeah.
is how you can make a distinction between being a real human being or someone who's just here taking up all the oxygen and resources.
Right. Well, that's why, and when people thank me for speaking out and using my privilege, I say, don't thank me for being human, and I really mean it. I think, see, because I might be like, I guess this. I'll just say it. I think everyone should be doing this. Every white person should use their privilege. We were born into this, but isn't when we just go, okay, cool, we were born into it. My God, it's like if you see a problem and just go, whatever. I just don't get it. So, and
It's
yeah,
I was going to say, just based off of what Anastasia said, and it's talking to white people about racism, and it's like that's the problem. Is like, we can have this conversation.
hmm,
What the real issue is, finding those people that don't want to have the conversation and recognizing there's no changing that. Like, we have to remember, there are people that will smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, people who drink 2 bottles of vodka a day, people that'll
you're
go to
outing me,
fast
Chris.
food,
Sorry, just kidding.
people that'll
Too
go
stretched.
and eat fast food 3 times a day, right? They don't care enough about themselves to take care of themselves. Why in the fuck would they care about anyone
That
else?
makes total sense. And a lot of times, the people from in my mind, and I'm trying to be like a psychological, whatever, trying to give myself an MD in psychiatry or something. But honestly, when people treat their fellow humans like a piece of shit, it's a reflection of them. I
Right.
mean, honestly, they must feel horrible about themselves to have to put other people down. And I truly believe that with all my heart. And so it's kind of interesting. People have a lot of ideas about this. But anyway, I wanted to quickly, we have a lot of topics to cover. And I want everybody ask away. Chris is open and honest. And this is what I love about him. He just says it. And he's not shy. I want to introduce myself to anyone who's new here. I am Angry Soccer Mom. It's just a name. I'm really not that angry. Um, and I host this live show every Wednesday at 9. I run a number of online communities, including this Angry Soccer Mom YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and ring the bell for notifications. And I'm going to have Chris's information on what he does. And he's very funny and amazing, I think, at the bottom of this when we post it. And I will start right here. Of course, I will do a rant, and then I'll tell you about the topics, and then we will chat. Let me see here. Anastasia had said, and I don't know if people know, this is why I don't talk to white people about racism. Yeah, I'm enraged talking to white folks about racism a lot of times, and so I can't imagine how you feel. Um, I would call it Neil, I would call it self-centered, Chris and Kim. I guess, you know, Neil says I'd call it self-centered. I think that's probably a possibility, but I mean, I always just think that, like, you must feel pretty bad about yourself if you have to put other people down to make yourself feel big. And if the best thing you ever did was get born white, that means you're probably not having a lot of great feelings about yourself because you didn't do it. So I don't know. But I mean, sure, Neil, I'm sure that's part of it. Um, Anton, you are absolutely right. Anastasia, well, it's like the thoughts and prayers BS. It allows people to do nothing and be okay with it. Yeah, I mean, I'm always blown away by how people tend to not get involved. I don't know what's wrong with me, but if I see something, I I care. I get involved. Like if I see, it doesn't matter whose kid it is. I would want them to do that for me. And if I was a numerical minority, I guess you could say, in this nation and being treated like a piece of crap forever, I would hope that people would care enough to. It's just, I don't know. To me, it's about being human. It's not about thanks. It's not about anything great. It's just act like a human and care. So I don't know. I guess I'm simplifying it a bit. Oh, cool, Chris. Let me see. Martin, I think everybody needs a bioanthropology class on what the human species is and where we actually come from. That one for me was a real eye opener. And by the way, we all come from Africa. Cool, Martin. Thank you.
What's interesting about what was just said
Martin?
from Martin is the idea that there are people that will acknowledge things like Pangea, right? When if you look at how the Earth is like a puzzle piece because it's all separated, and then there are people who have a hard time understanding that for whatever reason, because of DNA, because of geography, because of a litany of things that changed people because of where they were, you have lighter skinned and darker skinned people. And because the lighter skinned people found a way to exploit darker skinned people, that's why the narrative in the history that we have is predicated on privilege. And you talk about this idea of being born into privilege. And it's, again, I think we talked about this the last time. It's the idea that if you would have come to my house when I was 4 years old, I lived in a 2-bedroom house that was maybe 600 square feet. My mom was literally on top of my room, which was more of like an actual closet that my parents turned into a bedroom. We didn't always have food. We lived in cars. I know what it's like to be homeless. I also know that because I'm a white man, there are certain privileges that I get.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I have a wealth of money just sitting around in a
Right.
bank account. It doesn't mean that I have the nicest car and clothes and watches and things. It just means that when it comes down to fundamental rights, I, as a white person, have it better than the person, my counterpart, which may be darker skinned. That's it.
Right.
That people are so afraid to say privilege, like somehow you have to talk like this, and your friends would all come
like it's
upon
royalty
you
or something. Like
get the fuck
that's
out
not
of here.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, privilege is not this idea of like somehow your life is oh so easy.
There's tons of privileges, tons of different economic privileges, huge, and it has nothing to do, So I mean, it's absolutely, and a lot of times when I describe privilege to white folks, who, because again, this I usually kind of cater to beginners who, who am I to teach a person who is black, African American, or brown, or indigenous, or of mixed heritage, what it's like. That my job is to educate myself to the point where I can educate other white folks. But when I say privilege, privilege does not mean your life is easy. It does not mean you're wealthy. It does not mean you don't work your ass off for everything you get. It's the fact that there are certain things that you'll be given the benefit of the doubt about. That if you were a little bit browner, tanner, more melanated in that sense, you wouldn't be. And that's how our culture is. It has nothing to do with working hard or, oh my gosh, stuff like that.
One example of white privilege would be
Sure.
school districts and how geography, how someone who can live literally 30 minutes away from one school district that has advanced technology, up to date textbooks, and well paid and taken care of teachers versus places like North Philadelphia, which often have burden teachers who have to pay for everything and they have old textbooks. That's an example of systemic privilege, white privilege.
Right.
white privilege comes from that. And I know people want to talk about economics, but the reality is that's a real thing.
Yeah, and people who are listening right now, if you want to just throw in that's a great question. An example of white privilege. I can think of a ton of it. A little brown child in a classroom is called on less often, markedly, than white kids are. I mean, I can think of a ton of classroom things. The statistics are daunting, and they're not doing it on purpose. I mean, a lot of this isn't. They're not. Leslie, hello. Can't hear him. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's. Oh my gosh! Even nurses and doctors give. Go ahead, Chris.
Is this better? I'm sorry. I just wanted
No,
to
no, jump in. Sure.
test this. I just changed the microphone setup. I didn't know if that's better. Can people hear me better?
Les, can you hear him better? Anesthesia, the school to jail pipeline, absolutely. Doctors and nurses give children who have appendicitis. There's tons of studies that can be repeated. He still can't hear you. Interesting. Well, forget about him. Let's just listen to me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah, and so, okay, Martin says yes.
All right, good, good.
But they give children who are browner, darker, blacker, across the board, less pain medicine. And it's not something they're probably purposely doing to try to hurt children. We live in a culture that was based on white supremacy. You know, it was based on the near genocide of the native people who lived here, and then the enslavement of human beings, so we could get rich, basically. And they built our nation, and it's kind of incorporated. That's why they call it systemic. But definitely throwing systemic racism, white privilege, school to. There we go. Anastasia, there's one that I would love to say. When I see a little girl on a video being thrown around, a little black girl being thrown around by police, I say, over my dead body, would any police ever do that to a kid who was white?
And no, you're right. You're absolutely
when I saw, remember that little girl a couple years, oh my God, she was going through so much. Her parents had been killed or something, and she was in foster care. She just switched to the school, and he basically, I mean, there are so many examples of privilege. I could go on and on, but I won't. But let's see if we skipped anybody here. Anastasia, people will believe in aliens. Elvis is alive, Bigfoot, but they don't believe in systemic racism, and black people aren't inherently violent. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's very convenient what people will believe. They tend to believe like what they kind of want to believe. It's got to be incredibly painful. It makes me just enraged. So I cannot imagine the impact it could have. I mean, on the self-esteem, you know, such a young age. Even when you look at the white doll, black doll experiments that ended, that actually these research experiments helped put an end to separate but equal, because it was providing the horrible facts that even little kids are impacted by. Do you know what I'm talking about, Chris? It's just awful. It is awful. It's in the air.
One of the things that's really difficult, and Neil had asked the question, like, how do you stop white privilege? Mm-hmm. I don't know that we stop white privilege. I don't know that the white privilege is this something that is an entity all unto itself. Right. I think what we do is, by acknowledging privilege, it roots out and weeds out some of those things that actually choke out a person's right to be themselves.
Yeah, like become aware of it. Become very aware of it.
Like it's like when, and again, I'm 39 years old. I grew up in an era when your friends did something stupid. Your response was, stop being a fag. Even if the thing that they did had nothing to do with sexuality, we just naturally use that term, right?
Oh,
so at 39, I have people who are telling me you're using the wrong pronouns. And for my mind, I have to learn it. Now, I get the idea of not getting angry at people, like talk to me about it. It's the people that choose to be as disrespectful as they can be.
Well, that's ridiculous, yeah.
And that's the real issue. It's the people that go out of their way.
Yeah, it's all about respect. I 100% agree. And, you know, one of the things about noticing white privilege and just being aware of it, let's say...
Time out. I'm sorry. I just saw a post here. Here we go. Standard, I'm a white guy. I went to an all-black and Hispanic school.
Okay.
And you were different. Now, What I want you to do is I want you to imagine what we're talking about is that this is in fact your situation is the minority. You are literally capturing what we're talking about. When we talk about white privilege, here you are telling your sad story of what it was like to be the white guy in an all black and Hispanic school. Well, guess what? When I taught in schools that were all black and Hispanic, the white kids had their asses kissed because moms and dads would be up there. So, my question to you would be, what were your parents doing? Before you quickly turn to look at the black and Hispanic people, my question to you is, what were your parents doing at that time to help protect you or give you a better opportunity? See, there's the part that we often forget. We like to ask these questions where we get to people to put those exactly that one anecdotal story about, oh, you're in the minority. That's the problem, is we can't wrap our heads around it because, oh, it was so different for me. Well, then you accept that fucking fact. You acknowledge that. It's a stupid question to ask. It is like reverse psychology that goes nowhere.
Yeah. I think it's a, I mean, I know that's your experience has been, well, part of it is that all white people don't have the same privilege, but we do have privilege. And your personal circumstance is, I knew you would, Anastasia, your personal circumstance can be way outside the norm and not in the general. When we talk about this, we're not talking about you personally. We're talking about our society. Racism is a systemic thing. Your personal circumstances could be pretty different, you know? So we're not really talking about you, I guess. Jump in there, Chris. Jump in there.
It's just, okay, I'm not going to argue whether there's white privilege or not, because I'm especially not going to do it with someone who, when they say the things that they say, they actually don't have anything to back up their story other than their anecdotal experience. Again, if you say there's no such thing as white privilege, then there's no such thing as white privilege, and you can walk around with your head directly up your ass because that's what you're doing. Unfortunately, when you have your head that far up your ass, your opinion becomes muddled. No one can hear it, so essentially just dis the fuck appear because you're nothing more than a little cog in the little wheel of the problem that keeps this thing from moving forward. And if you don't see that there was a problem with how you were treated as a white person, I noticed you never said one fucking word about what I said when I called you out about your parents and what they were doing to help protect you. You come back with, there is no white privilege. Well, guess what? That's not the topic at hand, is it? Because we brought up your anecdotal story, and I'm talking directly and personally to you, and now you suddenly want to wilt like a little flower and say, there's no white privilege. That is not effective, and that is the problem. So again, going back to what Neil asked about how do we stop white privilege, it's not about stopping it. It's about acknowledging the fact that it fucking exists, and even people who are white trash to the fucking bone like myself, but who also educated himself along the way, decided that perhaps his voice would be better suited in trying to make a difference instead of being a fucking contrarian. Sorry.
Okay, no, I want, I told you he wasn't shy, you guys. That's what I love about him. He's not shy, and I am sorry that you feel attacked, but I think part of the thing is to separate there's a lot to this. This is not a simple thing. I understand exactly what Chris is saying. And your parents really should have jumped in there and been there for you. And I'm really sorry that happened to you, but that is not normally how things go. And there are individuals who have, like, let's say, for example, let me give an example that might help. Let's say I'm trying out for a job. Well, most people, the old obvious, it's kind of a social experiment. The same resumes go in. One has a black sounding name and one has a white sounding name. Not even a close call. The white sounding people get it. Well, once in a while you're going to go to an employee and they're going to be black. And they're going to, maybe this is the one time where they, maybe they don't like white people that much, And guess what? It doesn't mean that you don't have white privilege. That is a circumstantial thing. That is what happened to you in your circumstance. Very rare. White are the numerical majority. Our nation is built on white supremacy. If you're an incredibly poor, impoverished white person, you don't have as much as an incredibly rich white person, but you still have, in some ways, white privilege, right? And it's hard to differentiate sometimes. Maybe not as much, but you still have it. And I can talk to him later about examples. Like, I can give him a list that big, and you'll understand what I mean. You'll get it.
And this is the part that I don't understand. Is someone can give their anecdotal side of things, but can't stop long enough to think, if a person of color was just in your presence, would they feel more comfortable around you than they would me? Now, if you think that a person of color would feel more relaxed and more comfortable around you than they would me, that's where you are delusional. So while you think it is an attack on who you are, it is nothing more than highlighting your character or the lack thereof. Because you just said that somehow people are creating this idea of white privilege. When we break it down, we have people who can acknowledge its existence, and you, sir, are nothing more, as I said, than a contrarian that is trying to pull back something that other people have to endure. Okay? I don't know what it's like to get my period, but I know it must suck because every woman in my life makes it out to be like it's not a fucking dandy experience. But here you are. I'll bet you'll tell me how having ovaries isn't a big deal and it's not painful. Again, don't speak on others' behalf. If you don't like what I'm saying, then maybe you shouldn't be speaking on others' behalf. That's the problem.
Chris, are you saying essentially, I'm trying to get to the bottom of this, are you saying, and we'll move on, but are you saying basically that since this person has never been a person of color or a black person or an African American person or a brown person, that saying there's no white privilege is actually like a ludicrous thing to say? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, it's just because I'm a white person, so I can acknowledge what I have. But then to say that a black person can't say that they've had this experience, you can't deny it because you're not a person of color. But you're going to use the anecdotal story of what has happened to you when the tables were turned. So where do you see the issues? Think about why you would be the minority and treated like a minority. Why do you think that happened? Again, this comes back to the core root of what we see in America and we ignore. And that's the fact that people struggle regardless of color, but being white is like having a cherry on the top of your sundae.
It's a benefit of the doubt in a lot of situations.
That is it.
Benefit of the doubt. So I hope that helps a little bit. And we're going to, let me see. Oh, longer. Thank you, Anastasia. And again, people in our viewers who are, for the most part, incredibly educated are naming things that will actually be systemic racism and white privilege to help. And I can send you stuff. But white privilege, again, it does not mean your life is grand. It does not mean that everything came easy. Not even close. It's its own little category. So
race is not a counter argument. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't like, oh, I've got a black crayon, you've got a white crayon. We're talking about humanity. We're talking about people who can't be summed up. I do not want to be the representative for fat white guys with tattoos, because not all fat white guys with tattoos are like me. And thank God, because that's what makes life so fucking wonderful, is we're all different. But the idea that somehow we can deny things simply because we don't experience it is such a stupid way of approaching life. Like, I don't understand how fathers can have daughters and not think that way. Like, I know what it was like to be a boy growing up. I don't know what it's like to be a girl growing up, but I have to listen to my daughter. So how do I become an effective father? I listen to my daughter because she's the one who has the hoo-hoo and I have a penis. Right? Like, do you understand? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes you have to talk to people that are different than you to find out their experience, and you can't deny it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And a lot of times I think that it is, I tell white folks, and I don't care how rich or poor you are as a white person or what your experience has been, you do not get to tell black people, African American people, brown people, indigenous people, how it goes. You don't get to say how their experience is. You don't get to tell them that they're being too sensitive, to lighten up, or you don't get to say how they feel. You get to learn how they feel, and that's a gift that if they do tell you, that's a gift. So I guess it just boils down to, it's not about you. And it's such a hard concept to get. It's about the collective system that we're all in. So I think we'll probably move on from that. But definitely jump on in. I think I've skipped some people. Gary, a great comment. Occasionally people do see the light. And it's really hard. I said the same thing to a person like him. He would probably say I was using the race. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of classic denials and a lot of layers to unravel for white folks. Not all white folks, but most white folks in general. You know how I know that? Because we live in a country that is based on white supremacy, and we're still doing it. So that's why, if it was so damn easy to do, we wouldn't have it. Everyone would be standing up and saying, I'm not going to stand here and do nothing while I watch my fellow human get shit on. They'll be like, no way. They'll be like, I didn't do it, but God damn it, I'm not going to sit here and watch and do nothing. I always say this every single show. Would you stand there? I mean, what do you teach your kids? When somebody's getting bullied or being treated unfairly, do you tell them to walk by? Of course not. I mean, I don't. At a certain age, maybe, if they're really, really little and they can't, handle life like 3 or 4 or 5. But no, I teach them, you do not do nothing when someone is being hurt or abused, or you might have well done it yourself. So why do we walk by, be born into the society and go, meh, I didn't build it. I didn't It's like a pool. Would you watch someone drown in a pool? Of course not. Slowly drowning because you didn't build the goddamn pool? Of course not. Would you watch them drown because you didn't shove them in? No. So why do white folks have this thing that we can't, we talk about liberty and justice for all, but we're all talk. It's kind of embarrassing. So anyway, now I'm on a rant. But let me see here. Let's move on to our topics. I mean, this is hard stuff to talk about. This is not pretty stuff to talk about. If it was, all white people would be talking about it. So clearly, it's that's why we do this kind of show, is to not to beg on people, but you got to drop your freaking ego at the door.
If racism had a pumpkin flavor, you could get it in the fall, white people would be all over talking about it. We would love that shit. We would be lined up going, oh my God, have you tasted the pumpkin latte racism? It's so delicious. That's the only way you can get us to really...
Or pay them.
Yeah, or pay them. Yeah.
Because it's greed versus humanity. And for some strange, weird reason, in America, and I don't speak for other nations because I lived here, I've had my experiences here, we really just don't freaking get it. We don't want to get it. White privilege, oh my God, I've never heard it. It's not like a crime. You didn't do it. You were born into it. It's not a bad, horrible thing. It's a fact of being born into a society based on white supremacy. You didn't do it. It's a neutral thing, but people have made it a terrible thing. And white privilege is a neutral thing because it is a historical thing, and history isn't debatable. So, okay, unless you're lying about it. Okay, we'll move on. So tonight's topic, or we can still, talk about this if you want. Tonight's topics that I prepared are the backlash on Linda Fairstein, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, because of her role in the wrongful prosecution of the Central Park 5, which we'll go way into. Oregon is cracking down on white people who call 911 on black people for existing. Do you think Trump should be impeached or not? That's something I'd love to talk about with everybody. And Chris, racist police on Facebook, and the FBI and what they know about infiltration of Ku Klux Klan members about 13 years ago. Parkland school police officer who was a school police has been arrested. We can talk about that. How Facebook is racist towards black people and other people who are non-white. And I can't wait to tell you about last week's show that got banned right off of Facebook because that's what it was about. But we'll do that later. So while you're thinking of topics, I have a little rant. Feel free to interrupt. At the end, I'm going to ask everybody to participate. At the end of this rant, I'm going to make it fast as it can be. And again, there's no everybody. There's no everybody. If you're not in it, like if someone has said, every woman I know your age is a thief. Well, I wouldn't be like, what? I'd be like, I'm not, so I guess they're not talking about me. I mean, you can't get defensive about stuff like that. So, Anastasia, remember the good guy? Yeah. The good guy with the gun. Oh, yeah. Yes. Let me see if I'm missing any. Yes, and Peach Romeo. I want to hear what you have to say, Martin, on that one. He ran on racism, you won on racism. My rant might surprise you because it is not about any of the things we've talked about so far, but it's definitely about something that needs to be done, and you'll see. I'll try to make it fast. It's no secret, it's no secret that black people are much more likely to be shot and killed by police than their white peers. The racial disparity in use of force with police is ludicrous, okay? It's not if it is, it is. It's not a debatable thing. I mean, you can debate it if you want, but then again, I don't need to tell anyone listening that police brutality, murder, and abuse are in the news constantly. And thank God we have cell phones now that take pictures and do videos, because it's been this way from the beginning of forever. This crime against our own citizens is not only being ignored by the Trump administration, but is actually being encouraged, in my opinion. Comparing the U.S. to other nations paints a horrific picture of state-sanctioned murder of our own citizens. But you see, unlike a lot of problems where solutions just are hard to find, they're complicated, we have proven strategies that stop unnecessary murders of black people. Yeah, and I'll say it again. We have solutions that can stop or drastically lessen police brutality across our nation. We just don't use them. They're used few and far between. There are a number of factors that add to the terrifying rate at which police kill innocent black people in America. And they also kill sometimes white people too, but the percentages are higher based on the fact that how many black people there are compared to white people. Racial bias by police is a huge factor. The white numerical majority, we tolerate police brutality towards non-white people because we've normalized it, and it's just another part of our culture of white supremacy. Collectively, white America gives police reasonable doubt when they use force because they're considered the good guy, and most of our experiences have been great with police. They serve and protect us, most of us. Now, if you've lived in a really, really economically disenfranchised neighborhood, maybe and you're white, maybe you don't think that. But for most of us whites, we think we've been raised to believe that, okay? So when white people see police brutalizing black people, they assume, well, they had to do something. I mean, they don't have, but the problem is black people do not get the benefit of the doubt. They get quite the opposite. So, rant's almost over. Knowing the history of policing in America makes it obvious why police brutality has been happening since the beginning of forever. The slave patrols and night watches, the very beginning of our nation, were designed to control the behavior of non-whites, and those morphed into what's become modern police departments today. So how do police keep getting away with this? In the United States, they get away with it based on a Supreme Court decision, and this is my opinion. The Supreme Court decision isn't my opinion, but this plays into it. And I want to know what you think. So if you want to say something, write it out, because I really want to know what you have to say. There's certain Supreme Court decisions that have been made that have set the general framework for federal policies on police use of force. But the rules are very vague, and they heavily favor the officer. First, there's the defense of life rule, which allows them to use deadly force if an officer perceives a threat against them or someone else. Now, there doesn't have to be an actual threat, but only a reasonable perception that a reasonable person would think. And the second thing is that police can only shoot to prevent somebody from escaping if the suspect poses a threat as they flee. So at the federal level, the law is very ambiguous, and it sets the bar incredibly low for personal accountability of police. And I know there are amazing police, but right now we're not doing our best. Another factor is police training. When police training is looked at overall, there's departments that are amazing. I mean, amazing. I've seen Oakland, California. It's changed their whole, anyway. Most of the training, if you look at everybody's put together, is all about weapons training, very little on de-escalation, and almost nothing on awareness of racial implicit bias that leads to discriminatory actions. There's no screening, there's no, in comparison to other industrialized nations, our police program requires considerably less training. And finally, there's no minimum mandatory requirement by the federal government to compensate for the unconscious racist bias that America was founded on, So this is a really tough thing. Essentially, Ku Klux Klan members can join a police force, and according to the FBI records, they have. About 13 years ago, they found them, and they warned us about it, and we've done basically nothing. With all this being said, the most shocking part to me is that study after study shows, multiple studies confirm that the level of crime in a city has no relationship with the percentage of black people killed by police. So what this tells me is that black people are being murdered, and it has nothing to do with crime. It has to do with our community's tolerance of white supremacy and discrimination and racism. That study was going over and over. So I want to name some policies that can be implemented that drastically reduce police brutality. Study after study. City that uses them does it. And Chris, jump on in and tell me what you think, and everyone else too, because these things seem like common knowledge, but none of them have to be implemented on the national level. So states do what they want. So should I take a couple before I read those? Should I take a couple people? Let me see. Let me see. I'm just trying to get something on the subject. Martin, we tolerate excessive force against poor people, all colors. Yep. Just watch Cops. It's been on 30 years for a reason, and all whites are not in my. What does that mean? All whites are not in my backyard. What is he? Do you know what he means by that, Chris?
Yeah, basically saying, they don't mind it as long as it's not in my backyard.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Keep it out so then that way I don't have to deal with it. Like, I actually live, where I live, the Delaware River separates where I live from Trenton, New Jersey. And there are McMansions and mansions all along where I live, and everyone's very happy that there's that river between them. And anytime someone comes over across that way, as long as they go in the other direction, they're quite happy about that too. I know that for a fact because I've heard people say it. So it's not like, again, this is some in my head, some machination that I came up with where I think that, oh my gosh, these people must. No, I know for sure.
My friend told me that. My friend actually told me, and he lives in Michigan, and he said there's a line where you do not cross, or you are picked up and taken in. And he's not kidding. He said you just don't go there. So it's kind of like, wow. Thank you, Martin. Awesome point. Neil, Anastasia, you were right there. Oh, the impeaching thing. Let me see. The Democrats better off than. Okay, and we're gonna get to that. I'm trying to a little bit stick to the topics more now, and then we'll go back. I hate to do it to you guys. Anastasia.
While you're reading, I will say this. One of the things that I think would greatly change how policing happens, especially in urban areas, is when lawsuits are found in favor of black families, percentages of it should be taken from the pensions of the police department across the board. and I guarantee you that within a year, somebody dipping into my pension, I'm going to start speaking the fuck up every time I hear, see, or think someone's doing something
Yep.
that even resembles racism.
Love it.
Because they're not playing with my
And
check
in
anymore.
some of the, well, we're going to actually get to exactly that. In some of the 9 things that I have listed, they do have that actually. And you are 100% right. It sounds, yeah. The thing is, the whole culture of the whole thing has to be changed. It needs to be dismantled and rebuilt. It really does. In my white privileged opinion, I guess you could say. One thing that really makes a difference is, and all these are going to be obvious to you, is, and this is kind of strange, but if the department policy is that you must, in all practical situations, you must warn before you shoot, that lowers the death rate. In states that police and precincts that police may not shoot at a moving vehicle, that lowers. They're not allowed to shoot at a moving vehicle because obviously they can't see what's going on, who's in it. Okay? When officers are under oath to turn in fellow officers who use excessive force or racism, big shock. When they sign an oath, drastically lowers the death of black people and other non-white people. Lo and behold, accountability. When a department requires that de-escalation techniques be used before anything else, once again, shock of shocks, it lowers the amount of people who are killed and brutalized. When there's a use of force continuum, in other words, for people who aren't sure what that is, there's an order of operations that you go to. You don't just jump to the most invasive thing like let's shoot them. If they're not murdering somebody on the spot, you try things in a certain order. That lowers it too. These are all common sense. When people ban chokeholds and strangleholds, and they have to use another technique, right? Right now, we are not in an epidemic where police are being killed. Okay? We're not. We are in an epidemic and have been for a very long time where black, African American, brown people are being murdered at much higher percentage rates than the average population. I don't think anyone should be murdered by police. There's lots of countries who don't have guns on them, and they seem to do pretty well. I don't think we're that criminal here, like we're just special, we have more criminals. No, I'm not buying it. It's our culture. Departments that require use of force, that all use of force be reported. What do you know? People actually stop dying. How about this one? Requiring that your department exhaust every mean possible before shooting someone. Now you'd think that might be kind of obvious. That shouldn't they all have that? I'm sorry. I'm no, genius here, but it's unbelievable. So these are some things that work. They work because social scientists have have studied them and implemented them and done the stats. It's not really that hard. I studied social science in school, and it's, you have to be good to get the numbers right, but some things are pretty obvious. And these are things that are kind of embarrassingly obvious. What do you think, Chris? I mean, we don't use them.
We also waste our resources. A good example would be cities like in New Jersey, Camden, Newark, Trenton. They have what's called the SRT, Shooter Response Team, and they actually have microphones set up throughout the city that actually will pick up the sounds of gunshots, and then it kind of triangulates so the cops can respond
Oh, that's interesting.
immediately there. I mean, it's brilliant technology.
Yeah.
But what if we help to develop these areas so that you could see young people of color ownership of businesses? If you saw more opportunities for young people to get out of their homes in a safe environment to take in the outside the same way their white counterparts can?
Yep.
If we actually look at the resources to try to empower young people to recognize their potential for things like college,
Building their
trade
self-esteem.
schools,
Yep. Yep.
This is the problem because we'll spend millions on a shooter response team and these microphones that'll pick up gunshots. But we'll be damned if we try to figure out how we can take one block and change it enough so that people are proud to live where they are because they feel safe where they are.
Yeah, Chris, I could not agree with you more. When I worked in Compton, it was the year of the well, it was the year, a couple of years before the LA riots, and the year of the LA riots. And I'm telling you, my students had nothing. They had nothing but themselves, and they were amazing kids. And I always thought my kids went home after school and had zero supervision for the most part. Their parents were working 2, 3 jobs, just trying to survive. Why not put some money into extending? These kids were brilliant. I taught the gifted and talented. They weren't officially, but anyone who was super, super smart came into my class. Lucky me, I had 42 kids, but it was in the day. And I'll tell you, these kids were all freaking amazing. They could be or do anything. But instead, we had no books. Are you kidding me? We had no books for anything. That was just a given. I didn't even know you were supposed to have books because it was my first teaching assignment. I made up the curriculum myself at home every weekend, and it was kind of a lot to do because we did every subject because we didn't have any specialty classes. I mean, the whole thing is a very, very poor district, not because of the kids, but because everyone was redlined into it, and because of our school tax. The school taxes, how that's given is criminal. But anyway, that's a whole other subject. But my little guys, my God, 3 more. What if we had 3 more hours a day where they got supervision, they got a good snack, they got help with their homework, that's life changing. That is life changing, and that is not that expensive.
No, it's
It's
we've chosen
Yeah,
this
this is a
path.
choice.
We've chosen this because it makes more. I mean, think about it. Like I remember being a kid with my dad who was a meth addict, so I didn't take everything that he said too seriously. But I remember, even at a fairly young age, in the midst of all of his drug abuse, he said, "If they can read my fucking license plate from outer space, they can figure out where the drugs are coming from." And it's like, it was, and he used that for so many
Mm-hmm,
different
mm-hmm.
arguments. Like, let's stop pretending like we don't have solutions
Thank
to
you.
problems.
That's what I said in my rant. Is I'm at the point where we have solutions. We are choosing not to use them. It's sick shit. I mean, there are little pockets here and there doing amazing and have changed over. We don't want to. When I say we, I mean the mostly the most wealthy elite white folks that kind of run an oligarchy in this nation and enjoy the idea that white folks who are rather uneducated will blame black people for everything so that
But
they
let's
don't.
also let's take it a step further and also recognize you just said a really good point because you said about how this country is kind of like an oligarchy, and this country is a fucking oligarchy. For the last 20 years, when you really think about it, in some way there was a Bush Clinton influence in this country. And I'm not here to talk politics from the perspective of good versus bad,
Mm-hmm.
but when we look at the regular policies put in place, the Clintons can kiss my ass. They did no justice for anyone
Yeah.
of color in this
Yeah.
country by the criminal justice reform put
Oh, what they did
forward
was
by Bill
was was
Clinton, right?
was
And this all comes back to let's scale all of these issues back and look at them from where, like, if I go out my front door, where's the issue that I see? Now, from where I stand, from my
economic.
front door, right, I don't actually see anything, right? Except for the fact that I live in an apartment complex and everyone here is different colors and backgrounds and ethnicities and religions. And then when you go down the road, right, it's all mansions and it's all white
Mm-hmm.
people. Now,
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm not begrudging anyone because of their lot in life.
Right. Right.
But when I hear that there's no solution for this,
It's not
if
true.
my rent was $400 or $500 less a month because I pay nearly $2,000 a month in rent, I could literally go and buy my home. I could help
Mm-hmm.
spark that American
Yeah.
dream. But because no one is going to do that, even though I could easily walk into a bank and say, I'm paying 2,000 a month for my apartment, I
Right.
can easily pay an $1,100 or $1,200 mortgage,
Yeah.
but they don't want to hear it because they need their money down and the
Yeah.
system is not engaging enough.
Oh,
for people
definitely.
who are right. So there is the issue.
It
I
all
can
boils
walk
down
up.
to economics and that the oligarchy does not want to share the wealth. And can you remember? I'm a bit older than you, and I remember when all the stats were that about, let me see, 40, 50, 40% of people maybe, were struggling to hand to mouth, they call it. Okay, each month. They don't get a paycheck, they don't eat. Okay,
Right.
now it's like 70 something percent. I mean, the gap between it all boils down to economic privilege in a lot of ways. And that is a whole, I actually did a video on that. And my last comment on it was, and the wealthiest elite, thank you for your service. Because as long as white folks keep up this racism thing, towards people who are non-white, they'll never put their focus on the real problem, which is the wealthiest elite, and it's always been that way, and it's disgusting.
But again, this goes back to who are you putting into your school boards? Who are you putting into your local assemblies?
And
Those are the issues because when we come down to when we say, "Oh, America, America, America," it starts like I can literally tell you shit that I've seen in my school board arguments, and some of these people are legitimately they're racist. So if I can sit here and see that on my school board, why would I want someone like that to make decisions for my children when I want them to embrace people who are different than them?
it's terrifying, and part of the problem is our values. We, for some reason, we just can't seem to get over ourselves with the "we're all humans" thing. I don't get it. But also, there's a huge false. You okay? Hear a little beeping or something? There's a huge false economy going on with, like what Chris said about this great technology. That's probably costs a lot. That they could be actually doing it in a positive way rather than catching people. I mean, it's really a system of oppression. People don't get when people are allowed to live at a certain level where they're not struggling and struggling, they stop having to do crimes. When they can get therapy, they stop having to. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to ask this question because you struck something with me.
Okay.
Have you ever grounded one of your children?
Kind of.
Have you ever been grounded as a child?
No.
Okay. I was.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, I remember once said, you're a week. You're stuck in this house.
Oh.
And after the second day, it was the worst thing ever because I hated being I just wanted to go out, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want people to think about being captive. It's like being grounded. It's like stay in your home because it's not safe enough. And why isn't it safe enough? Not because it's black people in your neighborhood. It's because you have people who are oppressed financially,
Mm-hmm.
who have experienced, you said, trauma, like talking about access to mental health.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When I lost my dad, he went to bed one night and didn't wake up. That fucked me up because
Mm-hmm.
I lost my dad. Now, I want you to imagine your dad was shot and murdered, and you never have any mental health help, and you're expected to go and be a functioning adult later in life.
How about he just got pulled over by police and harassed even? Just little things. It's terrifying. And you're expected to go, totally. I didn't mean to cut you off, Chris.
No, it just pisses me off because again, if you look at you can break this down into metaphors that are easily understood by people who just choose to ignore it. Like this is about simple things that if you look at your life from a different perspective or another way of seeing things, you will recognize that the world is not as easy for every people. That's why when you see a video of a guy with no fucking legs running on his hands, everyone's like, look at this fucking guy. I'm not complaining about my life anymore. Mm-hmm. This guy's running on his hands. Well, why is it that you can think about the guy running on his fucking hands,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't stop to think, well, maybe it's different for me because I'm white?
Mm-hmm. We don't want to. We don't want to, exactly. And if you imagine, when my little kids in Compton would come late to school, okay? guess what I'd say? I mean, really late. I'd say, welcome to class. Have you had breakfast? Because my kids didn't have people at home to set their freaking alarm. My kids didn't have people at home to feed them. Sometimes they didn't have food in the house. And sometimes they were wearing the same clothes they wore like the day before. And I was thrilled that they came to my class. And I mean, can you imagine living like that? And then they're expected to perform. They're expected to, we didn't have books. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And it's just not knowing. That's all it comes down to. Again, I have never in my adult life wanted for a meal. In my adult life, in my childhood, definitely
Right.
it was different, right?
Right.
And just because I've been through that experience doesn't mean that I somehow have it. I can talk and pontificate about it. It's just that I understand it enough to be like, damn, when I'd have a student show up and he was in a pissy mood, it's because he hasn't eaten since lunch yesterday. Well, I get it. Yeah, you know what?
Right.
Here's a granola bar. Like
Yeah.
those little things that we take for granted. Like, here's one for you. If you have people that can't afford electricity in their house and food, think about the other things they can't afford, like soap,
Oh, yeah.
like toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
Like a kid who I saw him walking out with all his pockets were all puffy. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, nothing. I said, what do you have in your pockets? Nothing. I'm like, dude, what's going on? What's in your pockets? He's like, it's toilet paper. I was like, do you need toilet paper? He's like, come on, Mr. Smith, don't let everybody know. And I said, okay, my bad. So I took him aside and I said, listen, when you come to class tomorrow, I want you to write down all the things you need. Give me a day and I'll try to get some of those things that you need. I was like, if you tell me Rihanna or you tell me a 65-inch TV, I can't help you. But if you need things like little things, I can help you out. You know, letting the kid know that it's like there's nothing wrong with needing something, and there's nothing wrong for asking for help. Because that is one of those things that when people ask for help and we choose not to help them, okay, I get it. Sometimes you don't have the time or the resources. But the reality is acknowledging somebody is going through it can just be enough for that person to get through it themselves.
Yep, just to know I hear what you're going through and I see what you're going through. You're not alone. I get it. I might not get it, I might not really, but yeah, I mean, I learned so much when I was very, very young. I was raised in, part of the problem is we are so segregated right now. Many say that we are more segregated even than we were before desegregation. I mean, this is like, it's not good. And so people only meet people like themselves. They don't know a real live Muslim person very well or close friends with. They aren't close friends with a real live black person. They might know one, but they're not close friends. It's not like they've come to their house. So they don't really know them. And that is part of the problem. When you know somebody, a handshake is magical. And I know that sounds goofy, but what's magical about a handshake is you met them, now you know them. When you know somebody, you don't let people do rotten things to people you know, your friends. You don't. But before that handshake, who the hell are they?
It's 8 positive touches. Human beings require 8 positive touches a day to feel complete. So that means whether your handshake, a pat on the back, a hug, a high five, a fist pump, whatever it is, making contact with other human beings. We are social animals that run in packs. Unfortunately, we have dipshits that have their own packs. However, I wanted to interrupt, and I wanted anybody that's listening right now, definitely if you have Netflix, check out the documentary White Right. I don't know if you've seen this documentary yet, but White Right, it always comes to mind when I see these conversations and these debates because it's about people who are so vastly different coming together, and you could tell one person who was a female Muslim, and then you have these white National Socialist movement, rednecks, actually vouching for one another as if I know this person, and while they may be hateful or while they may be Muslim, they're vouching for them as a human being, the character of the individual. And these are people that are diametrically opposed. So if they can find it in themselves face to face, we can start with things like social media, where we don't necessarily attack everyone that says something that we don't agree with, but we get to the root of letting them know that we're not going to tolerate them saying those things.
Right. If we ever got to a point in our society where, and I'm not by any means thinking that white folks should be saviors or heroes or leaders. That ship sailed. Oh my God, that ship was never. Okay. What I am saying is just taking a slight amount of social responsibility, caring about our nation's culture and its people, all of its people, not some of its people, all of its people. I cannot stress that enough. How amazing would it be? I lay in bed and I imagine a society where, it wouldn't matter what my skin tone was. It doesn't mean I'm taking my culture away from somebody. I'm not trying to talk about being colorblind, but just a place where it doesn't matter that you're slightly not like what most people are. No shit's given. Think of how that would change life. I mean, talk about the mental health alone for people who are, I mean, we don't need to be this way. It's a human construct. We're assholes because we think that's like the right thing to do. If we would just stop, it would be life-changing, I think. So.
No, I think you're right that it would be life-changing, but I think, again, it cocomes back to the idea of understanding that it's not everyone.
Right.
You're not going to fix.
Right, but it wouldn't have to be everyone. It would just have to be.
I know. I'm pointing out what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems is people are very literal. They hear when you say like white privilege, like again, we go back, like they literally hear the word white, like it's a bad thing.
I'm not privileged, right?
Right, and I'm not privileged.
Yeah.
Privileged,
I am
I
privileged.
can't make my bills.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about. So sometimes we have to break it down a little bit.
No,
for
I
people
agree.
To understand, especially when we're passionate and argumentative, and we like to debate, we like to get to the root of it. Because there are people in the periphery that are trying to find their way in, and it doesn't help by coming off or going at them like you're wrong. But again, I'm not making excuses for you, and I'm gonna call you to task when you say something stupid, because that's called owning up to your shit.
No, that's what I love about you. You're so honest and not shy, and I always try to come from a teaching perspective, but there's some people who aren't ready.
No, and then again,
there's always going to be.
It's that 2 bottles of vodka a day person, right? Like they just don't care. They're going to keep doing that, poison in the body, knowing full well what they're doing. It's just they're not going to break that cycle.
It's a good analogy. Let me take some people's comments, and then let's get into some subject matter, because we have tons of it. Anastasia, it's called The Rules of Engagement. Daryl, we love what you do. I had to read that one. Thank you, Les. Thank you. Anastasia, we have ROEs in the military, and we know if we don't use them and kill someone, we will be under the jail. Okay, so I don't know military talk, but rules of engagement, right? Thank you. Okay, that makes sense. Yep, that makes sense. Dwayne, start taking cops' pensions. That will lower the murder of unarmed black people. Martin, our society is in decline economically speaking. It's been in decline for 40 years, and we're going to reach a breaking point. Until that happens, it will get worse. Absolutely. The most people, over 50% of people who go bankrupt and declare, bankruptcy, they're not buying a yacht. Guess what it is? Medical bills. Because insurance isn't really insurance in America. If you ever count the co-pays and the deductibles and oh my God, it's not really insurance, and let's all be real about that. But yeah, so people just don't get it. Let me keep reading. But yeah, absolutely. Anastasia, there's no repercussions and they get promoted or rewarded like Betty Jo Shelby. Yeah, somebody, I can't remember the name, somebody was just outed for having said something, which is another topic we can talk about tonight. On Facebook, they're a police officer, and 2 years ago, they were made the chief, the big guy. And they were in on I don't know if you guys heard in the news that there's a lot of people are being outed now on Facebook, and we'll talk about that, for being completely racist, and they're police officers. Let's give them a gun. Let's give them no training. Let's make, that's terrifying. Okay, so we all know about that. Dwayne, we need the society to put more money into investing in good educators. Oh, thank you. See, I only read the ones that have compliments for me. that help children. Thank you, Dwayne. I speak as an educator. I know you do. And if there were more good teachers that would help kids, and also lowering the number of kids in a classroom, and stop that insane thing where the housing value and the businesses around you are what gives you school money. That's pathetic, because that's basically a culture of a cycle of poverty. We redline people. We force them into neighborhoods that the infrastructure nobody wants to invest in. And then we say, well, the money you get for your school is from those taxes, and it's not much because, I mean, it's just sick. I mean, I could go on and on. Oh my goodness, we have a lot of people. I'm sorry, I'm skipping some people. Gary, most Americans only have friends that are like them: race, age, religion, ethnicity, etc. Right. Few have diverse friends, so it's easier to make the fearful feel more superior and more for. Absolutely, Gary. Great point. Yep. Anastasia, I'm sorry, Kim, but slave owners slept with their enslaved women, then sold their own kids away. Proximity means nothing. Do you know what she's mean? Or can you explain what you mean, Anastasia? I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of what you're referring to. Are you talking about? Okay, I think I get it. You're saying that when people become friends, they start to learn. Okay, I see what you're saying. So you disagree, right? And absolutely, I know about that in the slave days. But I think, and this is just my whiteness opinion, I guess. I mean, I obviously respect what you're saying, but I feel like people are like, there's certain people that are just way too far gone, and then there's certain people who are absolutely, they get it, and then it's all those people in the middle that, if they could just get to know somebody, it would break down. If they could just become friends with, those are the people. I'm not talking about everybody. Of course, they're right, but what I meant was, there's certain people who are so isolated that all they get is what's on TV. They might open their mind to, wow, something like this. Like, I just met a black person. We're becoming really great friends. They're just like kind of me. They're just like a normal person. Wow. And when they get that, when somebody else says, oh, those black people, they say, well, I know a black person who's not like that. So, I mean, the experience is good for them. Otherwise, all they get is from media and stereotypes. So that's kind of what I meant. But I'm not sure it's going to solve everything, but I'm not sure if I'm addressing what you're saying, but I think that is. The cynic, all Americans are privileged. Well, if you think about it, compared to a lot of places in the world, I get it. Anesthesia. Seems like white people want to take credit for everything except slavery and systemic racism. That's true. True. Good night, Les. Thanks.
Wasn't me. I didn't do it, right?
Oh my God. Nobody wants to, right. And it is it's a steep slope for a white person to actually get to the point where they're going, yeah, that's part of my history, because white people we don't look at ourselves as white, unless most white people do not look at themselves as white. We're just the given. We're not white. We're people. You're the different ones.
Yeah, I don't need, the moment you don't need, right, a descriptor, because you're just, oh, look at that person over there, look at that person over there, look at that black guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to fucking go. Stop it. Like, and I know it happens. I've been around my friends when they do it, and you're like, dude, like, what are you talking about? Now, I understand when an actual crime is committed and the cop shows up and he says, did you see the person who did the crime? Yes, I did.
Uh-huh.
Can you describe them? Well, it was a man, about 25 to 30 years old. He was about 6'2". What color was he? Well, he was a white guy. Oh, well, that's going to fucking help, because I'm going to know the difference now of what I'm looking for. But when you say things like, oh, look at that black guy over there, what is he looking at? That's different. And I don't understand how people don't see the difference in that. Like, once you have to distinguish between the color of a person and just a person, that's when you're already engaging in some kind of conversation where you're putting a distinction between them. and we all do it. I'm not sitting here with
Well,
some righteous place.
yeah.
I'm saying it's just a human thing.
Yeah,
But
it's
when
like evolutionary to organize your world. And the first trait that stands out the most, like if the person had bright red hair, that would be standing out the most. And you'd say, oh, all those people, it's the one with the, and that comes to mind. And I don't necessarily think in and of itself that is such a horrible thing. But it's the mindset and the attitude and the idea behind it that screws us all up. I mean,
I want to look at one of the comments. Anastasia
sure,
said both of us
yes.
said that if you shake a hand or a pat on the back, it will change the racism. I never said that it would change a person's racism, and I don't think you did either.
No, what I was trying to say. Okay, I got you. Okay, what I said that. Not and I didn't say. But the reason I said that is because in one of the groups that has been going on for many years, I have beginners, and I have people who are from every background. I have Palestinians, I have Israelis, poor people, rich people, homeless folks, black people, white people, Native American people. I'm talking like Quakers, you name it, we got it, because I purposely did that to set it up. And we all have very set, ways of being. We have every single person in the LGBTQ community there is. I mean, we have it all. And our goal is that we care about humans and that we're respectful to humans. And I have people who come in there and meet people they've never met in their lives and never would meet in their lives. And they are blown away. Like, you can meet a person who wears a burqa all day, when they're out. Maybe you've never seen one walking by. You can meet an actual real life black person and become friends. And I'm not saying it cures anything, but what it does do is it starts to expand. It expands people's minds, because then when they hear a stereotype and they're like, but I know someone who doesn't do that. It doesn't hurt, that's for sure. I'm not saying it cures racism, but it sure goes a long ways to help, in my opinion. So, and also, the whole thing about being friends. People are nasty to people they don't know a lot of times. But then when they come up to them and go, oh, that da-da-da, then when it's a friend of a friend, oh, come on over. It's kind of, do you know what I'm saying, Chris? I don't know if I'm...
Again, it's about what you see. If I posted a picture of a guy holding his niece, she was just born, right? Everyone would be like, oh, look at Uncle so-and-so, oh, it's so adorable. And everyone would respond that way. But if you didn't know that Uncle so-and-so was also a pederast, you would keep liking all of his photos with him hugging kids and being around kids because you don't know. But then if you heard someone say it, you might be like, well, what the hell's going on? And then you might start questioning it. And then you might not let them be around your kid because you found out a little bit about it, right? It's not until you educate yourself do you actually know. What you perceive and what you see, okay, just because you see it doesn't necessarily mean it's even what you think it is. I watch enough magicians to know it's all a bunch of bullshit anyway with what we see. I need to be part of it. And that's where the idea of reaching out and shaking someone's hand that you can't stand or you think you're going to hate. Right. Do your fucking research first, then form your opinion.
That's all right, exactly. Like, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Enemy Mine. It's an old movie. It's one of my favorite movies. In the end, these two strangers who basically want to kill each other the entire time get trapped on this planet together. They're different species. They know all these things about each other. They're terrible, and they spend most of the time trying to kill each other, and they finally have to kind of survive together. And when one takes the other back to the planet, lo and behold, they love their children just like the other one does. They get in their pants the same way. People just, sometimes proximity can help. I was not trying to say that solves everything. But I think for white folks, when it's a fear-based thing from just growing up in this like fear-based, like, oh, they're all criminals. Or when I was little, literally, I think I told folks this a lot of times. I would wake up in the middle of the night and sneak down, and I was very young, and my parents would be watching the 11 o'clock news. And all they would have every night was black people lined up in cuffs. I was 3 or 4. No one told me what that was. And they had the little things over their eyes so you couldn't really tell who they were. It was the 11 o'clock news. And stuff like that. Now, let's say I went that way my entire life and never met a single black person ever. That's all I knew about it. But what if I met somebody and they were like my best friend, like when I was 6? I didn't know they were black because my parents didn't tell me. I didn't know. I was 6. I didn't know what black was. I didn't know what white. I didn't notice. Maybe I was, out of it, or maybe I was too young. They were my best friend. They weren't a criminal. So it's like you can change perceptions just through knowledge, but not just through kind of casual knowledge. But Anastasia, I feel like I'm letting you down because I'm not kind of getting. I'm reading, but that black person is different. That black person is an exception to the rule, not the rule. As a black person with a name like Anastasia, I was told that it wasn't a black person name. Yeah, I feel like I'm letting you down because I'm not trying to. Are you reading what? Can you help me?
Well, where I'm at in from what I'm reading from Anastasia is like, I get it. Like you're allowed to be fed up and fucking done.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like you're absolutely allowed to feel fed up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not denying you in any way. God, I hope I haven't come across this.
I don't think that's coming across. I'm saying when she talked about the cajoling and pleading, and I think one of the things, I don't necessarily think you're mistaken. I think it's the idea of talking in general about trying to get white people. Like,
oh yeah, no, I don't think black people have to go out and do. Oh no. I see. No, and I don't. No, you don't have to represent. No.
And the reality
that's on white folks to do.
There are people that are afraid of their own fucking shadows.
Yeah, and you're not going to help them. Yeah.
No, you're never going to change that.
Yeah, Anastasia, I did not mean that it's on. Not at all. I'm talking. Remember, this is always who I talk to. Always is white folks. I do not address. That's not my place. White folks need to take it upon themselves to get their ass out there and get a little uncomfortable. And maybe the coworker that they've known for 10 years. Maybe go out to, maybe just not say hi every day when they sit in cubes right next to each other. How about, hey, you want to go to lunch? It's white folks that need, not the opposite. No, we have a white person problem in America. That's a problem we have. Okay, I think I'm getting what you're saying. I hope. But yeah, no. It's never the responsibility of the, no. I hope, I'm sorry I gave that impression, I guess. Moppy, just a couple weeks ago, people got mad at a black video game character for going back in time to change history when making slavery never happened. I've seen a lot of white YouTubers were mad at this. That's terrifying. that's terrible.
First of all,
wow.
Look, I'm just going to tell you right now, mom or dad, somebody's responsible again, kind of like that person that came in the room earlier. Like, where the fuck are parents in general? I don't care. Look, I understand working 2 and 3 jobs, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What I don't understand is how are you not having a conversation enough with your kid? How do you not know your kid's video game tag is I hate N-words or 420 all day? Again, I'm not judging you.
420 all day. Hey, that's mine. Come on, Chris. No, just kidding.
What I'm saying is, like, if you're surprised that your kid smokes weed and he's got a name like Bong Hits for Days, you're an idiot.
You're not right.
If your kid is on chat in a video game and you hear him dropping the N-word, you need to kick the door in and be like, who the fuck are you talking to? If your kid is writing shit that goes into a teacher's desk and then the teacher comes back and says, hey, this looks a little bit like racism, you need to be sitting down and talking to your kids.
Right.
The problem, again, goes back to the idea of no one the fuck is talking to their kids about real issues. And that is all racist.
Yeah.
All racist.
And absolutely. And part of the thing is, I know as a mom, the number one thing, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm so great, I make lots of mistakes, I'm sure, but the one thing is purposeful parenting. I know my kids might do this, that, and the other, but gosh darn it, they are going to have my values. And my values are humanism, and they are not going to look down upon a homeless person. They're going to say, what can I do to help? They are not going to look down upon a person who is tanner, or, is more tan, darker than them. They're going to say, oh, this is an opportunity for a friend. And that is purposefully instilled. It is no accident. Parents need to purposefully, white parents, instill this in their children, okay? That there's a zero tolerance. I mean, just educating your kids on this is not hard. It's not. Kids want to be good. When they're little, they don't know the difference. When they're really little, it's the socialization that you give them. And it's not all parents. I'm not blaming parents 100%. Some kids are born very different. But in general, Chris, I would have to agree with, I'm talking white parents, because I'm not going to speak for anyone but that.
Well, I'll give you a good example. My daughter just turned 15.
She must love you to say, looking
So
around.
she just turned 15, and we had a party, and she had all of her friends come over. And I had what I call my student son, who I taught, and
Uh-huh.
now
I know who you're talking about.
25, right? So
Yeah.
Jamil's here with me. Jamil's Muslim,
Uh-huh.
and there's all these white kids running around, and Jamil and I are just talking, and there's this one kid, and you can see him kind of watching and taking everything in. And then my daughter comes home from school on Monday, and she goes, "Oh yeah, so and so said, wow, Jamil seems like a really nice guy." And I said to Madeline, I said, "Well, what was your response?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, he's like my brother. Why wouldn't he be a nice guy?" And it made me feel so good that was her response. Like, she actually didn't quite understand where this kid was coming from, because she just saw Jamila as her brother.
Mm-hmm.
But this kid was like, wow, he's a really nice person, because he, okay, as a white kid, doesn't know many black people.
Right.
And he doesn't know many Muslims. So especially black Muslims. I think it's much different in their school, where you tend to see Muslims that are Middle Eastern, but you don't actually see black Muslims in at least the suburbs. So my daughter has this view, and then her friend has this, like, wow, I was surprised by this. But again, that I know is a little net that she's throwing out there, which means she's bringing people in because they're seeing the way she lives. And it's like, wow, it's a lot less resistance in your life to just be open to people. The minute they give you a reason not to like them, don't like them because of who they are. Right? It's easy to, I don't like you because you're an asshole. I don't like you because you're a bitch.
Right.
I don't like you
Exactly.
because...
When I say I don't like someone, this is the weirdest thing. And I don't want to pull us off the topic, but oops, this is when politicians apologize for saying something bad like that. It's like, no, it's by definition disingenuous. I'm sorry. People who say that stuff, that's how they think and that's how they feel. In a million years, if a black person did something rotten to me, I would not call them having anything to do with black. I'd say that was really rotten. And so
I was jumped by 4 white guys when I was 12.
So
They
do you-
beat the shit out of me, broke my ribs, knocked my knee out of place, made my bottom lip sit on top of my teeth. And guess what? I still hang out with white people.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm married to one and have sex with her.
please.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's this idea that because you had one bad experience, like,
Right.
I've had a lot of bad experiences
Yeah.
with white people.
The whole bad experience thing is such bullshit. It's like,
Right.
give me a break.
It's a terrible, terrible thing.
It's an excuse. Yeah, I totally agree, 100%. Okay, let me see. Where was I? Oh, Anthony, I mom love you. I love you, Mom. I think that's what you're gonna say. Keep up the good work. We need your knowledge. Thanks for your commitment to honesty. I will always be honest, because you know what? Thank you so much. That's really sweet. Why would I be honest in all the things that I do and then not in this? It's like, what? Oh, this category, I'm going to lie and pretend that, So thank you so much. That's really sweet. And Linda, thank you for being here. I've been kind of all over the place, and I haven't really been focused on some of the people who are here, but I appreciate everybody being here. Chris, I have a question for you. What would you, and for everybody listening, I want to read a quick rant. It's very short. It's about 30 seconds about this, this Linda Fairstein. I want to know what you guys think, and I don't know. I'm not sure if I'll agree or disagree, but I want to know. I'm gonna do just like a 1 minute, like a quick summary on the backlash that this lady is receiving, who was the prosecutor one of the main prosecutors of the Central Park Five. And what happened was this miniseries was released on Netflix called When They See Us. And it was about the Central Park Five. And I've done videos about the Central Park Five. They've been in at least 3 or 4 of my videos. And Trump has something to do with them. And so I'm going to do a quick summary. And I want to know what your take is, Chris, and what people watching's take is. Because I don't know, it's just very, very tough for me because we have a president that is just encompasses everything that is horrific about human nature all in one. And we don't hold him to any of these standards, but I agree, people need to be held. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be, but anyway. So 3 decades ago, after helping send 5 innocent young teens to prison, the former prosecutor, Linda Fairstein, she's facing right now backlash and criticism, and she had to delete some of her social media accounts, and because of this release of this film, a miniseries. And a quick overview of the Central Park Five is very, very important to know. This is a horrific thing. I mean, just barbaric. Seeing this, I don't know if I can watch the miniseries. I don't know if I can, because but it's a true story about these 5 young teens who were knowingly and purposely tried and found guilty of a heinous crime that they had nothing to do with. The Central Park, just for people who don't know, the Central Park jogger case was about a woman who was jogging in Central Park in New York City, where she was attacked and viciously raped in one of the most brutal and violent crimes ever to take place, where the person actually lived through it. I mean, it was brutal. On the night of the attack, 5 young teens were picked up as suspects. The police questioned them without their parents there. They forced a confession. They intimidated them, and I think they didn't feed them, and they were doing all the stuff. They needed to catch somebody and say who did it. And the kids had nothing to do with it. They forced a confession out of these young kids. And Trump, who lived in New York at the time, took it upon himself to spend his own money to put these giant full-page ads in the large newspapers in New York, talking about trying to sway public opinion on reinstating an active death penalty. In other words, we really have it. And not just have it in name, but actually do it. And after serving years in prison, these innocent, they were children at the time, now men, they found their DNA never matched. Never. They didn't even know the correct crime that was really, they were set up, basically, for all practical purposes. And a guy who was in prison for something else admitted to it, and his DNA was a perfect match. And to this day, Trump went on camera and said they're guilty. They said they did it. They were guilty. It's disgusting. So this is like your worst nightmare from hell. And so my question to Chris and to everybody is, the guys were exonerated, obviously, and they got money, but you can't pay someone enough. You can't. And what Trump did to them was like, oh my God, there are no words to say they did it. And he has some freaking nerve. And I don't want to make it about him, but he had nothing to do with the case. He didn't know. He's a racist bastard. These were children. These were kids. And they, he helped destroy their lives and put pressure on everybody. And I'm not blaming him per se, but he sure didn't help. And this district attorney person, the backlash, she's had to resign from a number of organizations. She ended up, the minute they got out, she kind of retired. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but she had a book deal, and people are, banning her books now. What do you guys think? Does she deserve this? What do you think? Chris, do you have an opinion on this? Or
I'll be honest. I think in terms of that whole story, I think it just brings a very simple question to be asked and answered, and that is, if the system isn't broken, how does something like this happen? So I think instead of looking at this one individual case,
right.
It's brutal in so many ways, and it's not going to change what happened.
Right.
But what we need to do is use this as a marker for the future, so that we don't ever let anything like this happen again. Now,
and sadly, we won't do that. We won't be doing that.
And that's where we have to understand uh, the idea of social influence when someone can take out, like, think about it, taking out a big ad in the New York Times was the equivalent of Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Like, right? So, like,
Good
that was,
point.
he's been doing that well before Twitter ever existed. And so,
Mm-hmm.
social influence for the sake of condemning or hurting when you have no vested interest. If they had
Hitting no
raped
kids.
his daughter, I could understand
Maybe,
how
you
Donald
know,
Trump might
yeah.
have more of a vested
Trump
interest
had
in.
nothing to do with it at all, and that's
Right. So
disgusting.
again, it comes back to this idea of what do we do to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And I think this goes back to your original topic you were talking about with police brutality.
Yep.
How do we continue to develop accountability within police departments? And also the idea of training police departments to not engage nor allow things like this to happen.
Our criminal
Because
justice system is wrought with systemic racism at from the very first encounter of profiling and the very first encounter with a person who's has implicit bias minimum or is just overtly racist. Who knows? You know, it at every level. I mean, I did a thing on it, a live show on it, and it's not fixable. It needs to be dismantled and structured as, let's just put it this way. It kind of reminds me, Chris, of what I was talking about with the police. We have solutions. We just don't want them. We have social problems that have solutions that we refuse to use.
And I think a lot of times it also comes back to the fact that we're already so far down the rabbit hole, and no politician wants to come right out and tell you, "Hey, we done fucked this up so bad that we actually can't stop it."
Yeah,
Like,
no,
this is
right.
this is like, threat level 5. Like, you don't want to know just how bad it is. It's like when you hear about the Cuban Missile Crisis and how close we actually were to obliterating ourselves. Like, those are scary things.
Yeah.
And I hate to do this. I do have to go, but one of the things I wanted to leave on was this idea of what you were saying, because I know one of the things you wanted to get into was Trump being impeached. I don't want him impeached. I want him to become the cornerstone for everything we will never allow to happen in our country again. And if we can use him to propagate change the right way, then I'm all for it. Getting rid of him is only going to put another liar, another fucking zealot in his place. Yeah. It's only going to perpetuate things. So while you're having this debate, thank you again for having me on. Just keep in mind that if you're a white person and you refuse to acknowledge that you can make a difference, then you refuse to acknowledge that you're actually also part of the problem. So you can't just sit in the middle. Pick a side, do something. In doing something is as simple in so many ways as letting a person know you have their back.
That is a great thing to say. I am so happy that you came on. I hope you'll come on again. You're amazing. We didn't get through half the stuff we wanted to. I do not know if we should just, I will say goodnight to you, and I will stay on for a few more minutes if people want to chat just a few minutes longer. And as the numbers dwindle, I will say goodnight to them.
All right.
How does that sound?
Well, take care, everyone, and I will...
Look for Chris's stuff. Look for Chris's stuff. Thank you so much, Chris.
I'll see you.
You're awesome. Thank you. Watch it be like one person watching. I don't know if you guys want to keep discussing this, but this is a really great topic. Chris is amazing. He does not mince words, as you might have noticed.
Just lost your picture.
Oh, you lost mine? Uh-oh.
Looks like you lost video.
Did I?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Your sound's probably going to stay.
I'm not sure if you can still hear me, but my picture's gone, and I will be back in 1 second if you want to keep talking. Can't see you. Yeah. I'm gonna get back. I guess when he went out, I went out too. But I was just gonna stay for. Can you see me now? Nope, not yet. I'm out. Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Well, I am going to stay for a little bit longer if anyone wants to. And Chris is definitely not a shy guy, and I love having him. He is passionate, and he really does care a lot. And I thought he's a very, very cool person to have on because he kind of says what he thinks. So let me see if we're on yet. Any chance that you can see me?
10 seconds. Now you're on.
Oh, I'm not on or yes?
Now you are.
Oh, yay, on. So if you want to hang around, I would love to keep chatting about this, although I did just lose my, nice, there it is. Okay. Oh, great. Well, if anyone can stay, I wanted to keep talking about this. I guess my big frustration with the things we're talking about today is simply we have solutions. We're not using them. It's
You're frozen now.
I'm frozen? Uh-oh. Maybe that's a hint. I need to say goodbye.
Yeah, what's going on?
I'm not sure. Not good. You can hear me. And I'm frozen in such a great way, too. Sorry if you can hear me, people. I'm losing people quickly. They're dropping. Not sure what's going on.
I don't know what's going on.
If you can hear me, we are trying to get back in. And if you can't wait, I absolutely understand. And I'm thrilled that so many people came out tonight.
I'm just going to have to cancel it and just wrap it up.
You think so? Okay. Oh, I apologize. Got the engineer here. And
Unless you want to just go to a straight live stream and drop this one.
It's okay. If you can't get it, we'll wrap it up. And I am thrilled to have everybody there. Sorry to technological difficulties. But I think what we'll do is wrap it up.
I got it.
Oh, maybe.
I think when you hid the window last time, it was a problem.
Okay. Well, I think people can see me now.
Give it a second. Now they can.
Maybe you can see me now. I was just saying, part of the thing that upsets me as just a human is that I'm a solver. I want to, if we have a problem and we have a solution that works, I want to use it. And oh, cool, yay! And that we don't do that is okay. I'll just say it. It's insane. Why? We can make police. We can train them. We can have. I don't get it. We won't use those solutions. What's wrong with us? I mean, and I don't mean us. I mean the people who are basically have the power. I mean, I know what's wrong with us. We're incredibly racist. But why? Why would we do that? I just don't get it. So anyway, I'm going to say, why? Like, but anyway, what do you think about? I agree 100% with Chris about the idea that sure, this Linda lady, you know, we can't change it, but holding people accountable, there is something to be said for that, you know, in social media. And I came to understand that you might not be doing something illegal, but it doesn't mean you've done right. And you might not have legal consequences, but you might have social consequences. And my only question of that I always want to say, because things have happened to me that were very, very not good in that regard, is I think social media is a great way to give consequences to people, but whatever you do, and I know you know this, like I should be telling you, please make sure it's really true. And that somebody didn't just say it and then somebody else just said it. Because that's how lynchings used to happen to people. Is check it out for yourself. And I know I'm not comparing that in any way, shape, or form, but I'm just saying that's what white people used to do. Is they literally would take a lie of somebody and pass it on. And that doesn't help anybody. So if you're like somebody who's just learning about all this stuff, definitely social media, I mean, but make sure you got to do your own research. That's the thing. You got to do your own research. So does anyone want to say anything about what they think? Because I will move on to the next topic. And the next topic is kind of cool because I am waiting for all states to do this. Here's a 20-second summary. The state of Oregon has decided to crack down. I know Michigan was going, one city in Michigan was going for this. The state of Oregon, kind of interesting, being that the state of Oregon was a state that didn't allow black people in it. But hey, I guess times change. And they sponsored a bill that is going to crack down on racially motivated 911 calls. And it's kind of interesting. I'm going to describe it to you in a minute and tell me what you think. Okay? One of the bill's chief sponsors is Representative Janelle Bynum, a Democrat. And she was canvassing for re-election in a Portland suburb last summer. And lo and behold, somebody called the police on her because she's a black woman. Okay, so this is personal for her, and this came from a response to a series of publicized incidents, but also her own personal experience. She got the police called on her because she was in a white space, and someone didn't like it, and so something to think about. I don't know what you guys think. I'm not getting any more live chat people, so I'm trying to see. There we go. There we go. Just had to make sure. Like, nobody's talking. That means, are you there? But I'll tell you, she and another, the only other black person in their their Senate, their state Senate, were the ones that were really into this, and they actually had a white Republican, no offense, but let's be real, stand up and say, well, I got stopped by, somebody called the police on me once. Well, you see, that's lovely, but you're not going to probably die, or the chances of you dying with a police contact is much different because you're a white guy. And he did not understand that. And I'm guessing he had absolutely no idea about the statistics of police brutality, and it was a really ignorant thing to say. But what they're doing is they took this bill not to give criminal charges, but to open up a pathway for people to file a small claims court for damages. Up to $250, and I know it might not seem like a lot, but money's money. We live in a society where we choose greed for money over humans. So I personally am all for it. What do you guys think? I wish we would all do that. I'm not trying to stop people from calling the police when they need them, but for the love of God, you don't call the police on a person for existing. That's sick. That's really messed up. Now I'm having trouble, let me just see here, getting there we go. Now I got it. Moppy. They hate talking about their history because it's wicked, so they have to make up history or steal history of others to distract people from the real problem. Yeah, we got some serious issues. So that's what Oregon's doing, and I'd love to know what you think, because I think everybody should be doing that. It's not fair, but that is kind of a after the fact retroactive way to do it. How about we train and educate our people? Oh my gosh. So that's what's kind of my driving force in tonight's show is we have solutions. We just don't use them. Because the people in charge and in power like the status quo. They enjoy the systemic racism, or they're getting something out of it, because I'll tell you, if they didn't, things would change. So anyway, I want to ask you about impeachment. Impeachment. What do you guys think? I need some opinions. Can you tell me what you think? Here's a quick summary if you're not following. Gary, Oregon has the right idea. The penalty is too mild. Yeah, I kind of, when I first read that, I was like, dang. But, there's a lot of studies that show, and I know exactly what you're saying. I was like, 250? There's a lot of studies that show that sometimes the punishment or the reward is inconsequential. There's been a lot, because as a teacher, I've read all these, but yeah, I'd like to see how it goes. I think it's a fantastic start, right? And thank you for that. I definitely agree with you. It's a great start because right now, most states are doing nothing. They're allowing this behavior, which condones it. We got some serious, you might have noticed, we have some serious issues in this country with racism. Okay? I'm joking. Duh, right? But it's out of control. Very out of control. So let me just talk for a minute about, it's beyond out of control. Greed over humanity. Greed over humanity. And the saddest thing on the planet is we have solutions. We just don't use them. So ever since the Mueller report came out, there has been a debate about whether to impeach Trump or do nothing. And this is for people who realize he's like pretty much the de facto modern leader of the Ku Klux Klan and modern white supremacy for the world. Okay, obviously, we still haven't seen the less redacted version of the Mueller report, and Trump has been telling those who are asked to testify or made to testify that they shouldn't do it. We do know that according to Mueller's own words, the Attorney General Barr grossly misrepresented the summary of his report, and the desire to impeach Trump seems to be growing stronger as Trump encourages people to ignore the subpoenas from the House Oversight Committee and ignore subpoenas from the House Judiciary Committee. And currently, as of last count, I heard, and this was might be 24 hours ago, so about 50, the current number of the House members who are calling for impeachment and verbally saying, we want him impeached now. Last week it was 50, and this week it's 58, plus or minus a few. So, Gary, I love the idea of impeachment. Air all his dirty deeds in public. The Senate will find him innocent, but at least we know the world. Yes, that's how I feel 100%. I feel at this point, I want it on record. All the things that he's done. I want our ancestors, if we make it, I want them to know what kind of man this person is. I want them to know everything. I'm very, very devastated by him on so many levels, and that's my big thing. Yeah, they might not put it through, but I want history to reflect the truth about this man. Yesterday, Chairman Nadler, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, called for constitutional remedies, which essentially means a diplomatic way of saying, let's impeach him. Mapi, they say blacks have lower IQs. There's no such thing as an IQ. It is made up by white people to feel superior and look down upon Negroes. Yeah, IQ, and as a teacher, IQ is really very inconsequential on a number of levels. It measures something that we're not even sure if it's like a valid thing. It's not. There are many, many ways to be extremely bright. I've never heard anyone say that nowadays. I know in the olden days, people would say that all the time because they were ignorant morons. But I've never heard that said now, but I'm sure people probably believe it. It is absolutely ludicrous and completely wrong. But people who say that, I really do believe it's a reflection on their character. Like, who says stuff like that? Like, what's wrong with these people? So, I'm kind of skewed in that way. Like, somebody said that my laugh alone would not suffice. They're so ignorant, it's kind of pathetic. But you see, I'm a white person, so I can take that air of oh, please, how hurtful that must be, thinking that people would think such a, ugh. And I truly believe, from what I've heard, what I've witnessed, what people tell me constantly, is that non-white people, especially black people and African Americans, have to work doubly as hard to get half as much. And I truly believe that overall, that is the case. And it might not be exact, but it shouldn't be anything. It shouldn't be. So it's a really tough thing. Yeah, I'm sorry. People who say that, education alone would just do wonders for us. It would just do wonders. But we, meaning the oligarchy of, people in control, we don't want that. Because remember, if you're picked, if you're picked for jury duty, the more educated you are, the more likely you'll get booted off. People want to keep the public in general kind of dumbed down, so that, because you can't really influence someone with fear and scare them into believing your way if they know how to use analytical. And I'm not saying you have to go to college for that. You just have to be educated. It can be by educating yourself. And so we have we have a lot of issues in this country. But anyway, so yesterday the White House was directed former officials Hope Hicks and Annie Donaldson not to turn over documents to the House Judiciary Committee relating to the time they were in the White House. So it seems like, the goal of these committees is to find out what more information on the 11 areas of possible obstruction that by Trump that came from the Mueller investigation. And even now, the Majority Whip, Jim Clyburn, has indicated on a number of television shows that it's not really if, it's kind of when he'll be impeached. Now, people change their minds. I don't know. But and there's a lot of hype, and people who are in the media, they want to, hype it up and all that. The man needs to leave. The man needs to freaking leave. It seems the more that Trump defies the congressional investigations, the more he's pitting the executive branch against the legislative branch, and it's really unhealthy and not cool. What do you guys think? What do you think? Anything? Because I definitely want them, personally, I want them to go for it. Because he deserves to be outed like the misogynist, racist, horrible, cruel human being that he is. And the more I'm reading about what's going on at the border, at the southern border, oh my God, they're handcuffing pregnant women. OBGYNs are basically getting court orders to pull the handcuffs off these migrant women so they can have an appointment at their doctors. And they're trying to keep them handcuffed during labor and delivery. It's barbaric. And then they take the baby away. And a lot of the doctors are afraid to speak out due to repercussions. But I know this is a little off topic, but the depth of cruelty we are done with, that alone is such a sick thing. Taking the children away, and now they're taking, immediately, because of his policy, immediately you give birth, they take your baby away. Can you imagine? Anyway, ranting and raving. The last thing, let's see, kind of the last thing I wanted to discuss, if you guys want to, is what do you think about these, some people might not have read this yet, but I'll give you a quick rundown. Police departments across the nation have been accused of having implicit bias and racist views against black people since forever, since the beginning of forever. And almost all of them have done absolutely nothing in their hiring or training to stop it. It's because we love our racism in America. I just don't get it. But in 2006, the FBI issued a warning that infiltration by groups like the KKK into law enforcement agencies was happening, and that there was a risk, and they caught some people, but they didn't really delve into it like they should. Well, this week, a little study came out, not so little. This week, the Plainview Project, PVP is what they're calling it, took a look at the public profiles of law enforcement officers in 8 jurisdictions in the United States and put together a database that showed these officers frequently posting racist, really nasty stuff, racist memes and violence. And you can chalk it up to, they're just venting, but I'm sorry. When you're not overtly racist, you can vent without being, I'm sorry. That's a cop-out. What a joke. This isn't venting. This is called, they're racist. It's like, we'll make every excuse. How about we just say the truth? And even, this is kind of crazy, but when some of the things that they mentioned were things that Black Lives Matter people are protesting, and they're talking about hurting people, and hardly anyone who's white wants to admit that they're racist or that they've done something racist. So they're like denying all this, but it's in writing for the world to see. Again, the policies we have for getting police to, become police officers are really not good. We don't even check for implicit bias. We don't even check for, in general, it's practically nothing. So I wanted to know what your thoughts are on this topic, because these people, a lot of people, I went on today and I put a post on Facebook, and it was of somebody who said, anyone who believes in that study and believes that they should be penalized for what they read on Facebook better not ever want the police's help. I'm like, okay, that's a sicko. That's a sick. Because basically they're saying if you hold them accountable for their behavior and thoughts, that they're not going to help you. It's like, oh my God, these people are like working, they're like public servants. So it's pretty crazy stuff. And in real time, like I'm talking like a couple hours ago, some guy wrote, they better watch their backs because the police aren't going to come for them. I'm thinking, what us? Okay, racist says what? Oh my God. This person was off their rocker. So I posted that online, and it's kind of scary because this guy was absolutely dead serious. He thought it was perfectly acceptable for people to hold extremely racist views. Some of the stuff they said, you can read about it. I didn't take them all down, but some of this stuff was out of control. These are police that we don't train in anything but how to use a gun. For the most part. And obviously that varies from police place to police place. But overall, I've seen the stats on that, and we train them, number one, how to shoot somebody. So that's what you want to do is take an overtly racist person who has no problem putting, horrible things on social media, give them no training and give them a gun and let them loose. It's kind of scary. So I want to wrap it up and tell you guys I cannot thank you enough. I'm skipping out on the Parkland. I don't know if you guys heard the Parkland school police officer got arrested for child endangerment and a number of other things, and kind of wondering what you thought of that. Because, gosh, that's a real toughie. And then, I have one more thing to tell people if they're still there. This is kind of crazy. Last Sunday, I did a show, a live show, and it was on Facebook, and all that they are not doing and not stepping up to the plate in order to treat people who are being abused, give them equality and equity and have their voices heard. Because the big gist was simply that I can post something and nothing happens to me, and my black friend does it, and they get booted off for 3 months, for 30 days. It's like, what the hell? That the people who are monitoring it's totally racist. And once I started looking into it, I absolutely get why. The whole gist of it came down to this: they believe that every group needs to be protected equally. In other words, white men. If you say white men, you're being a bigot to white men. So anytime you use anything like that, you're a target. So in other words, they do not consider the power structure whatsoever, which is ludicrous. But the funniest thing happened. I posted the live show on Facebook, and I got in trouble. I got in lots of trouble. They said they took it down. And they said that I broke their rules by posting a live show about a discussion about how racist Facebook is. So that was kind of interesting. And then the coolest thing happened like 2 hours later. They put it back. So I am so confused. But I think it's time for them to step up to the plate. And I know they've done a few things like, they're taking people off who are white supremacist groups and stuff like that, and which is awesome. And YouTube is actually doing some pretty cool things with not allowing groups that come on and their whole center of their philosophy is to say there was no Holocaust, or there was no 9/11, or there was no Sandy Hook, stuff like that. They're not letting them on anymore, which is really interesting. So we'll see what happens with that. But I wanted to tell everybody, thank you so much. If you believe, like I do, that it's way past time for white Americans to take some racial responsibility. And racial responsibility is simply educating yourself and not being a jerk. It's not complicated. Learn about a real racial history and understand how redlining destroyed people and made it so that they could not accumulate wealth. How our school tax system is just corrupt and increases this, it adds to the cycle of poverty. It's just educate yourself. If you're white, educate yourself, and then go out and educate other white people. And you're doing your part. And never do nothing. Never stand there and do nothing when your fellow human is being abused through racism, misogyny, bigotry, anything. It's just not hard stuff. This is not like, oh, it's exhausting. It's basic stuff. It's called being a human. And so I hope everyone can spread the word about our show and my YouTube channel if you believe in what I'm trying to do is just educate white folks. I love white folks, but I think a lot of us can do a lot better. This can't be the best we are. Upholding systemic racism. I can't believe in my mind that that's the best we can do because it's pathetic. And I believe in my fellow human. So that's what I do. Good night. Thank you so much for being here. You have no idea what it means to me to allow me to blab and blab. No, I'm just kidding. And I hope I see you next Wednesday. And don't forget, Thomas, my friend, who is wonderful, is coming on not this Sunday, but the next. He is a former Aryan Brotherhood leader of Mississippi. His story is amazing. It's like, it'll blow your mind. I did a 2.5-hour interview with him. See, I just never can stop talking. But I hope you join us. It'll be a Sunday, not this coming Sunday, but the next one. And he's going to do a Q&A. And he is really real. So thank you, Moppy. You're so sweet. And thank you, Neil. Good night, everybody. You're wonderful. And please spread the word, because I really want to grow this YouTube channel. And so I can get, instead of reading what you say, you can call in, which would be really cool. So good night, everybody. PM me for any questions, comments. I'm open for criticism. Okay, I'm not, but I will be. All right, now if only I could say good night for real. Good night, everybody. I think I said good night. Who knows? Maybe I did.
All right, I'll get your thing shut down.
Okay. Thank you. Copy. Well, that was easy, huh?
Oh my gosh.
Jesus, I'm so sorry, honey.